Welcome to week 12 of IT 604 Project Management. This week continues where we left off last week. Remember how we were always talking about identifying stakeholders, and then from there on, the stakeholder management process group certainly takes off, but the communications management group also takes off. And of course, as we have seen last week, when we talk about leadership and ethics, leadership is kind of focused more inside the team and tries to get the team to follow you wherever you're going to take it through these different modes of communication, through these different types of communication. And so internally focused means we are focused on the stakeholders for a project that are directly benefiting from the project. And we looked at different leadership styles as well. Coercive, which really doesn't work very well. That's what we'll see today. Authoritative, affiliative, democratic, pace setting, and coaching. And also looked at the PMI Code of Conduct in terms of responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty, all of which really are the ingredients for leadership that goes inside the team and that goes and communicates with the executive stakeholders through the use of a status report and through also the register that we're tracking. And today, we're going to take this conversation about leadership and the quality of communication, the ways of communicating. And we're going to direct that to the people who have a direct say in our project, but who are impacted by the outcome of our project, and are the users. Those folks who will have to change the way they work that we implemented our project. That can be an operating system, that can be a new ordering tool for, say, company cell phones, or it can also be a timekeeping tool. So we're going to talk about how our users are going to deal with the changes that we make them do. And so we're going to talk about managing that kind of change. It's called organizational change. We'll talk about resistance and conflict as they arise, because remember, it is our job as project managers to ensure that the message that we send out is being received by whoever we're asking to adjust their work mode based on their information needs, and that message is received and understood. And that very often doesn't happen because we assume that people want change, or that on Monday morning when we've deployed something, people will check their system and they'll use it right away, or that all we need to do is train our users and then they'll love the system that we're proposing, or that one change is really not going to matter because our pump is already primed for change internally. And, last but not least, our user choices, they can change or they can leave. Well, if your users, most likely your more senior users, carry a lot of company knowledge or of organizational knowledge in their heads that's not codified or written down, then those users leaving, probably not a good idea. So here is a little case study about WellPoint Screen Program. Now, if you're watching this video asynchronously, please take the time to pause this video, read through this case study, and then answer these questions for yourselves. So, about change management. Change management means transform the organization so it is aligned with the execution of a chosen corporate business strategy. Because remember, all projects and financing are dependent on where the company sees itself, or where the organization sees itself in 5 or 10 years, right? That's what we discussed when we talked about measurable organizational value. So and realize that measurable organizational value that your project produces for the organization, you manage the human element in a large-scale project. This woman here who says we must do something about this program. Here's the program we want to implement. Everybody who sits around the table here has a different reaction. Some people react positively, like the person here. The change is the most useful thing we can do to improve our efficiency without a major downsizing effort. It's great. The change will save jobs. It's a wonderful thing, right? That's what we call acceptance. This person here is obviously very much in line with the change and will help to promote the person's change here so he could be an ally, right? But acceptance, because acceptance is great, right? Now, some will not even have heard about this. Some people on naysay tried this, didn't work. Okay, fine, right? Some people have personal goals that are impacted, like this person here, right? Some people just think that that's not necessary, like this person, right? Some people are concerned about bonuses. Some other folks are have different ideas, right? Some people fears as well. Jobs will be lost. Not necessary, right? So, and we want to make sure then that if anybody is required to follow along with the change, but they don't like it, that's what we call compliance. Compliance is never good because it does not generate enthusiasm for the change or for the project in itself and its outcome. So, and we understand what the process is, what the impact is of the change on people's emotions, right? See one person here with acceptance. We see a number of people here that can probably be coerced into compliance, maybe because of jobs, right? We want to make sure that everybody moves towards this gray arrow here, acceptance. Now, there's a great video that I'm asking you to watch. That is right here. It's overcoming resistance to change, isn't it obvious? I'm asking you to watch this video. We're not going to include that right now in the picture, but the outcome of this video really to try and figure out how we can emphasize the positives of change and the negatives of not changing over the negatives of changing, which is the fears of the future that we've seen in the cartoon, and the positives of not changing, which is the love of the status quo. Now, the positives of not changing, for example, we think are going well. Why change them, right? The negatives of changing would be if we become more efficient, jobs will be lost. Or try that the previous company didn't work, right? So we want to be able to counter these arguments in the red boxes in order to ensure that we can move forward with the changes that our project is going to implement in the organization. Those are the ones in the green boxes, right? So, but how do we do that? We need a change management plan. Management plan. The one we want to understand is what are the driving forces for our change, allow us to unfreeze our present state, and lead through this time of chaos, this time of changing. How can we organize the chaos so it doesn't feel so unsettling? Make sure that we keep the resisting forces for our change to a minimum so that we can reach the desired state in which everybody is used to working with what we are implementing and is happily working with what we're implementing. So refreeze this desired state and move forward as an organization. So with unsettling, I'm really talking about the emotions people have during change management, and those go through the phases of mourning that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has described in 1969, believe it or not, long ago, where we go from shock to denial to anger to bargaining, like shock. Do you want me to use Windows 10? You must be crazy. I'm really mad at this now because I don't want to change, and could I please just keep my Windows 7 computer here? And oh my God, now I'm going to need to learn something new, and I'm way too old to learn something new, but maybe if you'll let me tinker with a test box for a little while, that might help, and maybe I'll even like it because Windows 10 isn't that bad, right? So I just described we're really all of these stages right now. So management is relevant because, you know, the organizational strategy and the priorities move forward. Move with it or not, the organization will move forward. So, and from this moving forward, from the strategy, remember all the portfolios and the programs and the projects are derived and their objectives are derived and they're supposed to bring value to the organization so the organizational strategy and priorities can move forward. And along with that, of course, whenever the juggernaut of the organization moves forward, we have external pressures that make themselves known and that we have to react to. You know, this is another reason why projects, of course, occur. We have things like market demand, we have legal requirements, we have customer requests, technological progress. Remember my example of Windows 7 to Windows 10, right? And then, of course, Windows 10 to whatever operating system comes next, right? And competition as well, of course, right? So take a look at the Cotter article about change management versus change leadership, and really think about what the difference is between change management and change leadership. Hint, we looked at last week what the difference is between management and leadership. And then also, we need to understand what change leadership is more important than change management, or management is more important than change leadership. And maybe we work together. Well, it's up to you, but really take a look at this article because really it's a very, very important article. If you are not interested in change management versus change leadership, then what change management in Jack Welch's terms. Now, if you are unfamiliar with who Jack Welch is, Jack Welch will help you understand the stature of this person in American business management. And we need to, in many cases, look at change management and change leadership through the eyes of someone like Jack Welch, who has led one of the most powerful corporations in America, in order to see where the tenets of change management are going. So, that as you're Googling Jack Welch, or while you're looking through the John Cotter article, let's talk a little bit about how to plan change management, right? So the first step towards planning change management is really to figure out where the organization is today, and if the organization and the people in it are willing and ready to change. And if they're not willing or ready to change, then we need to develop a strategy for this change based on how much we have to coach people to come along with us through this organizational change and the organizational development. We have to really address their fears, as we've seen in the cartoon. We have to address their motivation that could possibly be persuaded to change, right? Through pay increases or through visibility in the organization, positive visibility, hopefully, right? So, and this strategy is really, really important, and it really has a lot to do with emotional intelligence. It has a lot to do with communicating. It has a lot to do also with figuring out where people are in this Elizabeth Kubler-Ross continuum, or what will be after change. This also means that change management really is a very senior activity within an organization, and it has to, in many cases, come from the bottom up, not from the executive level down. Strategy and the plan have been developed. Then we want to implement the change management plan and track progress, and for that it's very important to understand which metrics to measure, right? Because at the end of the change management period, which goes along with the deployment period in a project, or even starts earlier to kind of put a pump for the changes to the users or changes for the users and to the users' work environment that are coming down the line. Understand which metrics to track so that we can, maybe a week after the change has happened, a month after the change has happened, even a year after the change has happened, so we can track how successful the change has really been, or how much measurable organizational value the project really has created. You know, the use of developing a piece of software that nobody's going to use later on, right? That's not measurable organizational value, and that is not really preparing the organization for a change to implement that change gainfully and effectively. So this means that we need to, for our change management planning, understand who the sponsors are. The initiating sponsor can very often be the project sponsor. A sustaining sponsor might actually be a functional manager or a department manager, right? We need to understand who the change agents are going to be. The can be an initiating change agent, but really it takes very, very important people and people who are well liked and who are thought to be thought leaders throughout the organization to carry that spirit of change forward. It may not necessarily be you, the project manager. Maybe someone very senior in the organization, but not necessarily very high level, right? And be very important individual contributors, right? Change agents come from all layers of the organization. The most important thing is that we recognize their large political and emotional influence on users whom we are trying to move from here to there. So the target of our change are the users. They can be our customers as well if the customers are users, like, for example, if we're producing an operating system, right? Or some piece of software that is being widely used. We must understand we must communicate to our users, to our targets of change, the impacts and the breadth of change, and don't hold anything back. You know, it's very important that they get the truth, because work success, the rules of their success, may in large part depend on how quickly they can adjust to the change that we're implementing. All right, they understand what has changed, what is over, what they can't use anymore, what they have to use now in its place, right? And again, how their rules for success have changed. There's a number of approaches that I encourage you to Google. There's the rational empirical approach that says, well, let's play with this new type of software, with the new system, and let's learn about it by looking around. Then there is a normative re-education approach where we're saying, okay, we're going to take a whole group and we're going to re-educate educate a whole group rather than the individuals. Then there is the power or coercive approach, which really gives us compliance through coercion. And remember, at the very beginning, we said compliance is never a good thing to have. What we really want is acceptance, which is a positive aspect of positive implementation of change at the user level that really moves an organization forward. I think people change can only or should only ever happen if there's a threat or if something significant has happened in which coercion and compliance really have to occur for the time being, but it always has to be our goal, turn compliance into acceptance. Of course, we all want to understand that people can adapt to change. We all would like to see people adapt to change and to believe that it's within the power of people to adapt, and that's the environmental adaptive approach. Again, I encourage you to Google all of these approaches. Now, with your project, you're not only driving the project if you do not have a separate organizational change manager by your side who is going to worry about users and how your users or your clients, your customers are going to respond to the changes. Like, let's say this organizational change manager could come from a PR department, or could come from the marketing department, or could come from even a technical department, from the training department even, right? Depending on what it is that you're trying to get your users to change, right? This person would be going through the 5 steps, through these 5 phases that you're seeing on the slide right now, identifying the change, working through the details of process, people, behavior changes, information changes, assessing the cost of the change, and also assessing the risks of the changes, right? And then doing the approach, implementing that approach, an action plan with a communication plan that may very well mirror your communication plan or be tied in with your project communication plan and your plan, right? But may also really look at a resistance plan, which is what we'll be looking at in a little bit. And we'll look at how to frame transition management, and also how to look at the readiness for implementation. And, finally, in this plan that this organizational change manager who may be by your side will develop will also be the key performance indicators, the KPIs that will have to be tracked in order to determine whether the change has been successful or not. Now, the good news is that, yes, there are organizational change managers in larger organizations. Bad news is that if you work with a small organization or with an organization that on the CMMI level is maybe not as far evolved, it may be the project manager, which means that you don't have just the technical project that you have to push through, but you do have a change management project that you have to push through as well. So one project that you had all of a sudden became 2. And the second project really is focused on soft skills, on your people skills, on your planning on how to communicate with people in order to pull people along with you. That's a large cultural enterprise, and so there are a couple of models that you can use in order to help you your communication. And one of them is, for example, the Cotter model, which says, well, we need to increase the urgency. You've probably heard about the burning platform, right? And to start to build guiding teams with people who are well liked and well respected and who have influence in the organization to help push your change through, right? But also want to ensure that we communicate the vision, the end goal of this change correctly. And then then at our stage 4, really, we are in the implementation. We need to get that communication right. One wrong word can really ruin a plan. It can ruin you politically in an organization as well, right? And then we need to enable and empower people to take action and allow people to short-term wins. Well, maybe with short-term visibility in a team meeting. Look, Joe used our product, its alpha version. He was our alpha tester, and look what he's been able to accomplish. Or look at Sanjeev. He's done really great, and he's saved 2 days worth of work by implementing the new process. That kind of thing, right? So, and most importantly, though, we don't let up, and we want to make sure to make it stick. And you've already seen me use a metric, namely that Sandeep has saved 2 days worth of work just by using the new process. This is a metric, right? Highlight the metrics that we're tracking in order to encourage people to want to be like Sandeep, who's really saved 2 days in the new process, right? The most important thing, though, the takeaways are that you want to plan the message content for each key role, and you want to really plan your communication and the vehicles of communication. It doesn't matter if those are little table tents in the break room, if those are, let's say, a thermometer kind of red, yellow, green measurement of the savings that we're incurring by implementing our change, right? To ensure what the success metric is, really, right? Whether it's days savings, whether it is, temperature gauge, that kind of thing. We need to ensure that we measure the effectiveness, not just of our communications, but of our change, and not just of our change, but of our communications. And how can we do that? How can we frame these communications? So we need to look at what is causing people potentially to resist, right? Next change. And if you watch this video that I encouraged you at the beginning of this video to watch, we'll see that it is in people's nature to resist, because people like to stay where they are and feel comfortable. And change really moves people out of their comfort zone into a state. And so here, the questions that you have here are just a part of, but a good starting point for consideration of how we can reach people so that they will come with us, right? And so here we have, I mentioned that earlier, a resistance analysis plan or a change management plan in which we look at, and part of a change management plan is the resistance list, right? We look at the issues. Like, for example, the office manager who may be not in a medical office, who may have always used paper charts for the patients, and all of a sudden this person will have to use an electronic medical record system, the computer, and she will have to learn a new computer system, and maybe she's never used computers before, right? So here are some of the reasons for her resistance. How can we find that out? Well, by talking to her, right? And if to talk to us, maybe you're going to want to talk to Rashika, who's a really, really nice person and who's very sweet, and who really has a good wavelength with Betty, right? So, and how to get her to this whole learning stage of wanting to learn, being ready to learn about the new computer system, right? So here there are some actions. This is an action plan actually for one person that we're putting together, that we have to, in which we have to emphasize messages that we have to schedule. So someone, here in this case Shala, in fact, has to pursue with Betty in order to get Betty in line, because we all know that if the office manager is not happy, administrative backbone can collapse. So same thing here with Junior James, the dispatcher, if you read through this. Well, same thing. We need to understand where people are, what their reservations are against our change, and then we need to analyze each point of their resistance to figure out, can we address that through communication, learning, or reinforcement, and what are the specific actions that we need to take in order to bring them along? What are the key messages that we need to emphasize over and over and over again, either with specific people like Betty, like Junior James, or with groups of people. Let's say, for example, the facilities department or the scheduling department, right? And as with risk resolution, resistance is risk within people, right? We need a plan forward, we need to have a success metric, and we need to make sure somebody's in charge of that person or that department and bringing them along into the fold, and we also need a target date. So that's very important, and this is why our communication plan is one part of the change management plan. And this is change management and project management really coincide, and can both be included in the communication plan, because change management really, as you're seeing here, we have the 5 phases of project management. Organizational change management really starts with project initiation while preparing for the change and really tracking to the project schedule. By the end, by project execution and by project closing, really the users are ready to face the changes that we are introducing into their workflows, and so that is our primary goal. The way that can happen to you is that your project goes great, you think you're on time, you've got your scope taken care of, you are going on budget exactly, within the 5% that you said you would, and everything is going well, and at the end, your users say, that producing, that system upgrade, we don't want it. It didn't work at company ID, it's not going to work here. And, I don't lose my job, so I don't want George to lose his job if we are implementing this computer system, because it's much more efficient and it's going to eliminate George's job. Those kinds of things. So this is why we have change management procedures, why we have change management that ties in with project management, runs parallel to project management. This is why large organizations have organizational change managers that will be by your side, advocating the politics of implementing your project. And organizations who don't have organizational change management managers by your side, it's going to be you. And the considerations that you've seen today are the ones that you're going to have to implement as well alongside your project. So you don't have just one project, you two. As for this week, I'm asking you to take a look at all of these here, including forces, resistance, states of grieving. We went through it. And then, as you watch the assigned video about mermaids, alligators, scratches, and pots of gold. So be able to define and explain each of these words, that next week we can focus on project implementation, and we do so without having to worry about our users. Questions do we have from our attendees? Let's see who all is here. All right, Banu, Navina, and Fatima. Questions to the content. Navina, questions? Okay. Banu, no questions. Thank you so much for attending, and I look forward to seeing you in class, and enjoy your assignments this week. Take good care.